Friends, we are reading chapter 5 of An Elk Dropped In. Grandma's coming to visit. A visitor for Mr. Moose. 2 days before Christmas Eve, Grandma arrived for her annual Christmas visit, loaded with bags and suitcases. We had intended to prepare her very slowly for Mr. Moose. I don't have to tell you why, Mama had said. The hat, Kiki replied. Long ago, Grandma had been attacked by a giraffe that had eaten her expensive straw hat with plastic apples on it right off her head. Ever since, she's been terrified of large animals. To prevent her coming across Mr. Moose by chance on her very first day, Mama had asked him if he minded being kept carefully locked up in the garage. He didn't. Oh, a new table, Grandma noticed when we all settled down in the living room for afternoon tea. How pretty and very sturdy. The name of the new table was Flipskoken. It was made of tough beechwood. Mama said only an elephant crashing down on it would make it fall to bits. Grandma straightened the little hat she wore for traveling. This one wasn't made of straw, but some flimsy green material, and it looked like a battered bird's nest. Are there any of my coconut biscuits left? She asked. We finished those up days ago, said Kiki with a beaming smile. They were absolutely delicious. I nodded and beamed as well, and was thinking of the poor ducks in the park who had to do without this year. I could manage a little drink, said Grandma, pulling her hat up about on her head. I find train journeys so exhausting. Kiki grinned. We all knew that Grandma liked a little drink even when she hadn't just been on a train journey. That's why Mama had bought 2 bottles of cherry brandy on her last shopping trip, one of which she now placed on Flipskoken. Ah, a sip of cherry brandy, said Grandma, and rubbed her hands together in delight. At this moment, the doorbell rang. Kiki, Billy, would you answer the door? Said Mama. When we opened it, there was an old man in an old-fashioned check suit standing on the doorstep. He had white hair, bright blue eyes, and a big belly. He looked very friendly, but he wasn't. I've come to fetch my elk, he said. My name is Santa Claus. Can you prove it? I asked coldly. Of course I can prove it, said the old man. You are Billy Wagner, and the summer before last you broke 23 eggs in Pinnock's hen coop. Billy! Gasped Kiki in admiration. I felt so awful. I wanted to sit down. Not a soul in the whole wide world knew about business with the hen's eggs. I hadn't even told Mr. Moose about it. The old man was the boss. I am fully aware that the elk is tucked away in your garage, said Santa Claus. But it's locked, so may I ask you to be so good as to let me have the key? You may not, came a voice from behind me. Mama had stepped out into the hall with Grandma. Who are you, anyway? I'm Father Christmas, growled Santa Claus. Oh, said Mama. Can you prove it? Of course I can prove it, said Santa Claus. You are Kirsten Wagner, and every year you let your children feed your grandmother's coconut biscuits to the ducks in the park. Mama turned very pale. Is that true? Shouted Grandma indignantly. Yes, said Santa Claus, but you can't really blame her. The biscuits are always burnt. Kiki opened her mouth to say something, but thought better of it. That still makes me angry when I think about it. Who knows what secrets of her Santa Claus might have revealed? Where's your sled? I asked. I was playing for time, but I was so curious as well. Santa Claus explained that the sled was at home back in America, where it was being fitted out for the big Christmas ride. He had just come in a perfectly normal airplane and wanted Mr. Moose to fly back with him. In an airplane? I asked. See Santa Claus? Well, of course not. He'll fly on his own, said Santa Claus, and there's not a moment to lose. So come on right away now and bring out the elk, or else there'll be no Christmas presents. What elk? Asked Grandma nervously. I'll explain later, replied Mama. All the Christmas presents in the world didn't matter a scrap to me. I had nothing to lose apart from Mr. Moose, my best and only friend. You can keep your Christmas presents, I shouted. I wouldn't take them from a kidnapper anyway. That's for starters, said Mama. And secondly, I buy all the Christmas presents myself. Buy, 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 snapped Santa Claus. All you humans think about is money and shopping. I'm not talking about presents you can buy. I'm talking about people's deepest felt wishes, which can only come true for those who believe in me. The elk stays here, said Mama firmly. I was wondering whether Mr. Moose shouldn't be the one to decide for himself whether he wanted to go with his boss or not. It could be. That would spare us a lot of bother, as Santa Claus's ears were beginning to turn bright red. His blue eyes looked as if a storm was brewing in them, and that would break out at any moment. Do you want me to lose my temper? He growled. It suddenly occurred to me that he might be able to cast a spell over us. Mr. Moose hadn't mentioned anything like that, but then I never asked him. So there was still the possibility that Santa Claus might turn us all into burnt coconut biscuits, which, for a change, might not be fed to the ducks in the park, but to Penneck's hens in revenge. The idea was terrifying. It was Grandma who saved the situation. My good man, she said, smiling at Santa Claus, before you get upset, why don't you have a little glass of cherry brandy? That works wonders. If you wish, madame. But just a very little one, said Santa Claus. When he chose to, he could be every bit as polite as Mr. Moose. Half an hour later, Grandma and Santa Claus were sitting in front of Flipspoken, facing an empty bottle of cherry brandy. They were singing a song together about why it was so lovely down by the riverside. Before that, Santa Claus had explained to Grandma that she needed to bake her coconut biscuits at a lower heat and that she ought to buy herself a prettier hat. Honesty is the best policy, said Mama. Kiki, bring in the second bottle of cherry brandy. I asked Mama for the key to the garage and went out to Mr. Moose. He wasn't at all surprised that Boss had come to fetch him. I ought to go with him, he said. On the other hand, it would be nice to stay with you a little longer. I'll have to think about it. It was already dark by the time Santa Claus finally left. He was singing merrily as he swayed down Finch's Way by the light of the street lamps in the direction of the town. He seemed to have forgotten all about Moose. He'll come back tomorrow, said Mr. Moose. I can think it over. Till then. See? Thank you for watching. Tune in next time for Chapter 6.